Welcome to News Laundry Chhota Hafta. For the full episode, subscribe because it is behind the paywall and only subscribers get access to uncut, complete content. News Laundry Hafta is our weekly wrap of all that made the news, all that didn't, and all that should have and all that shouldn't have. We agree, we disagree, we critique, and occasionally we beat each other up. But it's all good fun. Subscribe.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta from a very wet and rainy Delhi. We have got the much needed relief from 3 horrible days. But elsewhere in the country, things are flooding at an alarming rate, which we shall discuss in the Hafta today. Before we get into the headlines and the intros, I have an announcement to make, an important one. As you know, we are planning a live recording of Awful and Awesome in July. At 6 p.m. on the 10th of July at Seminar Hall, Kamala Devi Complex at IIC Delhi near Khan Market. This is Lodi Estate. We will have tea followed by some snacks and a recording of Awful and Awesome. This is for subscribers only, and we'll also do a bit of a subscriber meetup after that. Now, because this meetup is in long overdue, we are going to have a few more in other parts of the country as well. But they're limited seats, so to attend, please write to subscription at newslaundry.com. I repeat, subscription at newslaundry.com. And if you're being a +1, do include that in the mail. From the live recording onwards, all subsequent Awful and Awesomes will also be behind the paywall, like the Hafta. So therefore, you will have to subscribe. I would recommend you download the app because that makes the podcast experience much easier. So do become subscribers so you can get all our content behind the paywall. Well, now let's get into the introduction of the panel. With me in the studio is Raman Kirpal. Hi, sir.
Hi.
Manisha Pande.
Hello.
Joining us on the phone line is Jayashree. Hi, Jayashree.
Hi.
You're on the Hafta after quite a while, right?
Yeah, I think it's been 2 weeks.
Right.
Feels like longer.
And joining us also on the phone line is Amit Kumar. Hi, Amit.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Amit is the executive editor of EastMojo. It's the Northeast's largest independent digital multimedia platform. He's earlier been with the Economic Times and Business Today, twocircles.net, and has also contributed to Article 14. So, Amit, where are you positioned?
I am currently based out of Guwahati.
I see. But do you end up traveling a lot around there? I mean, how long have you been with EastMojo now?
I've been with EastMojo since November 2020, but I've been in and out of Assam since 2016. So I was living in near Kaziranga for about a year in 2020. I moved to Guwahati for this job, but I was working freelance. So that time I was all over.
So near Kaziranga, somewhere near Tezpur? I mean, do you live there? What?
No, not near Tezpur. I was near so there are 3 ranges in Kaziranga, the western, central and eastern. So I was on the eastern range. So the furthest range if you're going from Guwahati, it will be the furthest range. It's closer to Jorhat, for example. So I was living in a subdivision town called Bokakhat, and I was based there for about a year and a half.
Right.
So I've been observing floods for quite some time now.
Yeah, it's horrible there. I mean, in fact, just today we are recording this at 3 p.m. on Thursday, the 30th of June. There have been landslides in Tripura, some more landslides today.
Yeah, in fact,
One in
there have been
Manipur.
landslides in Tripura. Just a couple of hours ago, we updated a story from Manipur, where a district called None is one of the newer districts. 7 people have died in landslides over there. There's an army Jawan missing in Arunachal. There have been landslides, quite a few landslide related deaths in Meghalaya since the beginning of April. May there were quite a few. In the beginning of June also there were quite a few. So yeah, I mean, the situation, to put it mildly, is like pretty grim.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the main issues we'll be discussing today. But first, let's get the headlines. Jayashree, if you could please do the honors.
Yes. So here are the headlines for the week. A Hindu tailor was beheaded in Udaipur by 2 Muslim men. The tailor was allegedly targeted over a social media post he'd put up supporting former BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma. A curfew has been imposed and the internet has been suspended in the state. The 2 men have been arrested. NIA has taken over investigation of the case. The culprits are also believed by investigators to have links to a Karachi-based religious movement. Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray resigned on Wednesday night shortly after the Supreme Court declined to stay a floor test called by the governor, which will take place today, Thursday. Devendra Fadnavis is set to stake claim to the Chief Minister's post for the 3rd time. The flood situation in Assam has worsened following heavy rains. As of June 28th, I think the total death count since April 6th is 139. On Wednesday, the rebel Shiv Sena MLAs from Maharashtra decided to contribute 51 lakhs to the Chief Minister's Relief Fund. This is after they were criticized for staying at a luxury hotel in Guwahati while parts of Assam witnessed severe floods. In Manipur, at least 55 Indian Army personnel and civilians are missing. 2 are confirmed dead after a massive landslide hit on Wednesday night. Meanwhile, Alt News co-founder Mohammed Zubair was arrested on June 27th for allegedly hurting religious sentiments. This is in connection with a tweet he posted in 2018. He is in police custody now, and the Delhi police have brought him to Bangalore today to recover his laptop and other electronic evidence.
Activist Teesta Setalvad and former cop R.V. Srikumar were arrested by the Gujarat police a day after the Supreme Court upheld the clean chit given by a special investigation team to Modi over the 2002 Gujarat riots. So Setalvad and Zakia Jafri had filed a petition challenging the SIT's clean chit. The arrests were condemned by the UN Human Rights Office, but the Ministry of External Affairs has called this an interference.
4 of the OAC-led AIMIM's 5 MLAs in Bihar have joined the RJD. So what this means is that the RJD is now the single largest party in the state assembly. It has 80 MLAs now, while the BJP has 77. In Germany, Prime Minister Modi attended the G7 summit, where he said India will do what it thinks is best in the interest of its own energy security when it comes to the question of global oil trade. G7 leaders were looking at more sanctions and an oil price cap to tighten the financial squeeze against Russia. Reliance Information Limited chairman Mukesh Ambani has stepped down from his position as chairman and director of Reliance Jio. His older son Akash Ambani will take over, while his daughter Isha is set to be named as chairperson of the Reliance Conglomerate Retail Unit. Finally, in the United States, Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, has officially reversed Roe versus Wade, which declares the constitutional right to abortion no longer exists. This has led to widespread protests across the country. That's the headlines.
So in Guwahati, there are certain areas which are like, the joke is that even if somebody sneezes, it will get floods. So because these are literally, as you said, built on wetlands. So, Brahmaputra flows through Guwahati, right? So it had a huge floodplain, like, the buffer zone, so to speak. And all of that has been encroached to, astonishing levels. And just as, like, say, Bangalore has lost almost, 70 to 80 lakes, if I'm not wrong, in the last 30 years. So the same is with Guwahati too. In Guwahati, there is just no concept of, Guwahati surrounded by hills. If one of you have been here, you'll see that there are a lot of hills around Guwahati.
Right.
So a lot of water from the hills would have a lot of territory to flow into. So if you are heading from say for example, if you're coming from the airport side, there's a place called Deepor Bill. Okay, now it's a Ramsar protected site, and that area is humongous, like huge. But slowly you have structures built inside. Some of them are Sarkari institutions, like In Guwahati, it is not even like I was telling people, like, what did you expect? It's raining in Guwahati, so it will get flooded. But in Guwahati, the term flooded can almost be interchangeably used with waterlogging. No, I just would like to point out, last year, while we were going through the mother of all pandemic problems, Assam was actually going through a severe drought situation. In September, EastMojo did a 15-20 minute documentary on how droughts had caused huge loss for farmers. So that's what I also was trying to explain, that this idea of rains leading to flood is almost being shifted on its head, because rain is just one component of the flood. It's also the water discharge from dams or from embankments, and then there are the embankments. Last year, I'll give you an example. Again, the place where I used to live, Bukaghat, it is a subdivision. The district is Golaghat. So there, the water from there is a river called Dhansri which joins Brahmaputra later in the Kaziranga National Park. So this town is on the banks of the Dhansri River. Dhansri it wasn't like there was a lot of rains in Bukaghat. The land was dry, but water was released from Nagaland, from the Doyang hydroelectric project, because of rains in Nagaland, and the water got caught here. So this idea that you can stop water doesn't make any sense.
The percentage of population that lives on the floodplain is not that high. So not that we are doing it, but if it was required, they can be resettled. But in Assam, almost half the population is living in an area that would technically be called a floodplain. So there's no way you can move them anywhere. Is that correct? Is that kind of,
Yeah, that's the thing. See, like if you, at one point, there were 32 districts that were under floods. And out of 33 districts or 35 districts, but almost 95% of the state is flooded.
So then what do you do? Right?
Historically, it is the NC Hills, erstwhile North Kachar Hills, now the Karbi Anglong Dima area. they are the ones that will not be flooded because, then answer lies in the name, they are hills. But now this time the damage was from landslides. And now if you connect what caused the landslide, it's very simple. Since 2000, from 2000 until now, in 22 years, Dima Hasao, which at one point was 80% forested area, has lost almost 20% of its forest cover. Dima Hasao, which, if you remember the floods in May, which was essentially Dima Hasao, Karbi Anglong region, not Karbi so much as Dima Hasao. Dima Hasao in March, it is also the most forest fire prone district in India. You have a district that is the most forest fire prone, which also becomes the worst hit by floods.
Today we have a bandh here in Jaipur where shopkeepers have voluntarily, come out and they have decided to go on a day-long bandh. And several offices were also shut. And so were several offices and markets were shut in Jaisalmer also, in Jodhpur also, and Udaipur is already shut. It's under, it's under the police, security has been beefed up there.
And curfew, there was curfew there, right?
Yeah, there's a curfew. Security has been beefed up, but because Rajasthan and Jaipur, there was no curfew. We just had 144 imposed. But after this incident today, the shopkeepers voluntarily, it was a peaceful march also. They took out a peaceful march where they demanded justice.
We were thinking that this is going to
blow out of control.
It is going to go out of control, not just in the state. It is going to spread all over the country. I mean, the way the politicians, capitalize on such things.
The way the news channels are going.
Yes. So we thought of it.
The way the videos got viral.
But I think that the politicians this time, in this particular case, they were not so irresponsible. Maybe there is a blackout in the state. I mean, nobody is talking too much about it.
I mean, the silver lining to this horribly dark cloud is that it is not that rhetoric isn't being drummed up for the kind of violence that one would assume, has happened in the past when things like this have happened. So there was no garlanding and stuff like that was happening this time. So
no, but that will not happen in this case also.
No, but in whatever way, I just think the news channel. I think the news channels have displayed a horrible. Their worst has been on display. Whether it's a kind of visuals that they have. In fact, like Manisha has pointed out in the nuisance, Rahul Shivshankar in his debate was saying that was questioning. I don't know whether he was being cute or cheeky or rhetoric, that if there can be a blasphemy law in Muslim countries, or for someone who has said something about the Prophet, Kalburgi and Gauri Lankesh and all should also be beheaded. First of all, they're dead, so they can't really be beheaded, right? That should there be a law for beheading if you insult a Hindu? I mean, the news channels are worse than the worst mobs in the kind of shit that they say.
First and foremost, I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but even during the backlash to alleged blasphemy by Rupur Sharma, there were no protests in Assam. So everything was like the Himanta Biswa Sarma. I mean, some people lauded him, like writing publications were like, this is how you control it, and they compared Bengal versus Assam, for example, to show that how tensions flared up in Bengal, but nothing happened in Assam. And district administration stepped in and they said there is no protest, nobody is doing any protest, nothing's going on, no doing nothing. And then let's not forget the state is also in the middle of the worst floods in the recent times, right? So like if you think of it in that right now, there is that media which, I mean, even we don't watch Assamese media, frankly speaking, because why? But, there was an attempt to flare up, but frankly speaking, it's not an issue here because as you can see, and the whole point of me being on this show is because we have far bigger problems to deal with right now.
They made a very progressive step in the 70s or whenever, right? When Roe versus Wade came in.
Right.
So to overturn that decades later, like there is no reasoning to step backwards for it. But I think in the UK, I think abortion is criminalized in England and Scotland. I think it's legally, you can only carry it out within the first 24 weeks. So comparisons to say that one country is better than the other, I don't think they work. Like, I think you are right in that.
But then it's not but here states can arbitrarily decide fetal viability. That's the problem.
Yes.
Now some states are like, okay, right at the time of, like complete ban. even in the UK, I don't think you'd have any region there which completely bans it. Making it illegal after 28 weeks, you can debate it. I don't think it should be illegal, so to speak, that you'll be criminalized for it. But of course, there are medical complications. There has to be a time which has to be a cutoff.
But in India,
in the
which is
UK,
7 months,
in the UK, you can legally
great.
carry it out in the first 24 weeks.
But in India, in the last few months, there have been so many cases of exceptional cases when people have gone to the courts and the courts have allowed it beyond a certain time. And I mean, those can be taken. But yeah, I guess in a country like America, I get what you think. Although Amazon has announced that it will give all its workers who are in states that have banned it, and if they want an abortion, they will reimburse them for the travel to a state which does allow it.
I was going to say about those companies that are now stepping forward, like H&M and everything, saying that we'll pay for our employees to travel so they can go and access safe abortions and so on. I mean, it's great. It's sort of show of solidarity and all. But also, I mean, if I was in a position where I wanted to get an abortion, do I really want to depend on my employer and hope that this information this extremely sensitive, extremely difficult information that I'm handing over to them, is this something that I want to do? Is that a position I want to be put in? Do I have to worry about my health insurance will usually come from my employer? Will it cover the cost of this abortion as well? Like, I think there are a lot of like random things to factor into it. Whereas like on paper, it is great that companies are saying they will support their employees, but there's always a catch. And I wouldn't want to put my faith into my employer just because my government is letting me down, So I feel like it puts people into awkward situations.
No, absolutely. I don't think it's an ideal situation. The government should not be putting, its citizens at risk. All of you listening in, the Chhota Hafta, do subscribe so you can listen to the entire Hafta. We will see you again next week with the Hafta. Till then, subscribe, pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Thank you. Goodbye.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Sun liya Afrika, mufat khoro. Not to brag or anything, but News Laundry Hafta features in the top 50 in the world on SoundCloud in the news and politics category for podcasts. So do subscribe and see what you're missing, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Subscribe, help keep news independent and free. All News Laundry podcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher and any other podcast platform.